Settle in slowly and let your eyes grow heavy as we drift toward the quiet shores of ancient Greece. Tonight, we follow the gentle story of Aphrodite, goddess of beauty, love, flowers, sea foam, and soft golden light. There is no hurry here, only calm water, distant temples, fragrant gardens, and the peaceful rhythm of old myths retold like a bedtime whisper. Long before the familiar stories of heroes and cities, the wide sea stretched beneath an open sky. Ancient poets told that after the sky god Uranus was separated from the earth by his son Cronus, the divine remains fell into the waves. The sea received them without anger. White foam gathered gently upon the surface, drifting wherever the quiet currents wished to carry it. From this mysterious union of sea and sky, something entirely new began to take shape. The waters, so often calm between distant islands, became the birthplace of a goddess whose presence would later be associated with beauty, harmony, desire, and graceful affection. The Greek word aphros means foam, and many ancient listeners understood the goddess's name as a reminder of her remarkable beginning. Rather than emerging from a palace or mountain, she came from the endless movement of the sea itself. Every slow wave seemed to carry a quiet promise, as though nature patiently prepared a place for her arrival. The story speaks less of sudden creation than of gentle transformation. The restless ocean gradually became a cradle, where the bright foam slowly gathered into the peaceful form of Aphrodite. The earliest poets described the newborn goddess as already complete, untouched by childhood or age. She rose with calm dignity from the shining waters, surrounded by the soft light of morning. Nothing hurried her first moments beneath the open sky. Sea breezes moved quietly around her, carrying the fresh scent of salt across the horizon. The waves continued their endless rhythm, as though they had welcomed countless dawns before this one and would continue long after. Her birth became another peaceful chapter in the vast rhythm of the natural world. The sea carried Aphrodite gently across its broad surface toward distant shores. Ancient traditions offered different destinations, yet each imagined a slow and graceful journey rather than a hurried arrival. The waves became her first companions, lifting her carefully with each quiet swell. Above her stretched an empty sky, while below her the clear waters reflected gentle sunlight. In this calm passage, the ocean itself seemed almost devoted to protecting its remarkable traveler, until she reached the land where her story among gods and mortals would gradually unfold. Many later traditions remembered the island of Cythera as one of the first places touched by Aphrodite's presence. From there, her story continued towards Cyprus, whose shores became deeply connected with her worship. These islands, surrounded by blue waters and gentle coastal winds, offered landscapes perfectly suited to the peaceful memory of her arrival. Rocky beaches, flowering hillsides, and quiet coves became part of the sacred geography associated with the goddess. Pilgrims in later centuries remembered these places not simply as islands, but as landscapes blessed by divine beauty. As Aphrodite approached the shore, the natural world welcomed her in quiet ways. Later poets imagined flowers opening beneath her steps and soft grasses becoming greener wherever she passed. These details belong to poetic tradition rather than the earliest surviving myths, yet they reveal how deeply the Greeks connected beauty with the living landscape. Blossoms, fresh leaves, and gentle fragrances became symbols of her influence. Her presence did not overpower nature. Instead, it encouraged every peaceful corner of the earth to reveal its own quiet loveliness. The gentle breeze also became closely associated with Aphrodite's arrival. Coastal winds that moved lightly across the sea seemed fitting companions for a goddess born from the waves. Sailors, travelers, and poets all knew the feeling of these steady breezes, carrying cool air across quiet water. In later art and literature, the wind often appeared as an invisible guide, helping her peaceful journey toward land. It reminded listeners that even something unseen could shape beautiful moments through patience rather than force. Although Aphrodite became famous as a goddess of love, her earliest appearance was closely tied to the balance between sea, sky, and earth. Her birth reflected powerful cosmic events, yet her own arrival remained serene. From conflict emerged calm. From separation came harmony. This contrast gave her story a lasting sense of quiet renewal. Ancient audiences could recognize that even dramatic changes within the divine world sometimes gave rise to peace, beauty, and new beginnings instead of endless struggle. The ancient poet Hesiod preserved one of the oldest surviving accounts of Aphrodite's birth in his work known as the Theogony. His verses describe the sea foam, the drifting journey, and the goddess's gradual appearance with remarkable simplicity. Later generations added many artistic details, yet the heart of the story remained unchanged. The sea itself became both witness and cradle. Across centuries, readers continued to imagine those quiet waters carrying one of the most beloved figures of Greek mythology toward the peaceful shores of the world. Artists throughout the Greek world found endless inspiration in this peaceful beginning. Vase painters, sculptors, and poets each imagined the gentle elegance of Aphrodite emerging from the sea. Some emphasized flowing water, while others focused upon the quiet dignity of her posture. Each interpretation reflected admiration rather than spectacle. The image of calm beauty rising from nature itself became one of the most enduring symbols of the ancient Mediterranean imagination, inspiring generations long after the first myths were spoken aloud. Temples dedicated to Aphrodite often stood near harbors, islands, or coastal hills, where the sound of waves remained close. Visitors approaching these sanctuaries could easily remember the goddess's remarkable beginning upon the sea. Gentle breezes, distant gulls, and the scent of salt formed a peaceful setting for prayer and quiet reflection. The natural surroundings themselves echoed the story, allowing worshippers to feel connected with the calm origins of the goddess whose beauty first appeared upon the water. The sea continued to symbolize more than the place of Aphrodite's birth. It represented movement, renewal, and the quiet connection between distant lands. Greek sailors crossed its waters carrying stories from island to island, allowing the memory of the goddess to travel wherever ships reached safe harbors. Her origin upon the sea reminded listeners that beauty could belong to every shore touched by the same gentle waves. Across the Mediterranean, familiar tides quietly united many different communities beneath shared traditions. Even among the Olympian gods, Aphrodite's beginning remained unique. Most divine figures belonged to familiar family lines, yet she seemed to emerge directly from one of the oldest cosmic events remembered in Greek mythology. Her story linked the earliest generations of gods with the later world of Olympus. This ancient connection gave her presence unusual depth, joining timeless natural forces with the quieter lives of later gods and human beings alike. Her birth became a bridge between creation itself and everyday beauty. As the first quiet morning of Aphrodite's existence unfolded, the sea returned to its familiar rhythm. Gentle waves continued washing the shore, while breezes carried the scent of salt across peaceful beaches. The remarkable moment gradually became part of memory, preserved through poetry, art, and careful storytelling. Every later tale of the goddess rested upon this calm beginning among the white foam. Before gardens, temples, festivals, or songs, there was simply the patient sea, the open sky, and the peaceful birth of enduring beauty. Long before cities filled the coasts of the eastern Mediterranean, the sea moved with an ancient and patient rhythm. Gentle waves crossed wide blue waters beneath quiet skies, carrying stories older than memory itself. Greek poets imagined that one remarkable morning, the surface of the sea became unusually calm, as though nature itself had paused for a peaceful moment. From those tranquil waters, a new divine presence slowly began to appear. There was no hurry in her arrival. The sea remained soft and welcoming, reflecting light across its surface as the first moments of Aphrodite's story unfolded with remarkable serenity. Ancient tradition tells that Aphrodite came into being from the sea foam, following events connected with Uranus and Cronus. Hesiod described the foam drifting across the water until it gathered into a graceful new form. Rather than presenting the moment as sudden or violent, later artists often emphasized the peaceful beauty that followed. The restless sea became quiet again, and from its white foam emerged a goddess whose presence represented harmony, attraction, and gentle balance. Even in the oldest stories, her first appearance was closely connected with the calm and ever-changing waters of the sea. The waves carried Aphrodite steadily toward the island of Cyprus, a place that would forever remain closely associated with her worship. The journey was not described as difficult. Instead, the sea itself seemed willing to guide her without resistance. Gentle breezes crossed the water, while sunlight shimmered across the surface like countless small stars. Every movement appeared slow and measured, allowing the island to draw gradually nearer. In quiet imagination, the voyage became one of the most peaceful passages in all of Greek mythology, where nature itself welcomed a new goddess with complete tranquility. As Aphrodite approached the shoreline, the coast of Cyprus offered broad beaches, smooth stones, and gentle waves washing softly onto the sand. Ancient people later honored several locations on the island as places connected with her first arrival. Whether standing beside quiet coves or looking across open water, generations remembered these shores as sacred landscapes touched by divine beauty. The sea continued its familiar rhythm, never rushing, never standing still, while the coastline quietly received its most famous visitor with peaceful simplicity. Greek poetry often linked Aphrodite with flowers that seemed naturally suited to her peaceful arrival. Blossoms opening beneath warm sunlight became symbols of beauty unfolding without effort. Fresh greenery, soft petals, and delicate fragrances surrounded many later images of the goddess. These gentle details reflected an important part of her nature. Rather than overwhelming the landscape, she seemed to encourage its quiet flourishing. The fields remained fields, the gardens remained gardens, yet everything appeared just a little more graceful in her calm presence. The sea itself remained one of Aphrodite's lasting symbols. Even after reaching land, artists and poets continued to surround her with shells, waves, and gentle marine creatures. The ocean represented not only her birthplace, but also the quiet movement through which she entered the world. Its endless tides reminded listeners that beauty could emerge from steady rhythms rather than sudden change. Every returning wave echoed the ancient memory of her first peaceful appearance upon the waters surrounding Cyprus. Among the Houri, the gentle goddesses of the seasons and natural order, Aphrodite was welcomed into the company of the Olympian world. Ancient poets described them clothing her in beautiful garments and adorning her with ornaments worthy of a goddess. Their actions were calm and ceremonial rather than hurried. Every movement reflected order, balance, and quiet celebration. The arrival of Aphrodite became not merely the appearance of a new deity, but the graceful introduction of beauty into the ordered patterns of the cosmos. Although later myths often explored love and desire through dramatic stories, Aphrodite's earliest moments remained remarkably peaceful. Before complicated relationships or famous adventures, There was simply the sea, the breeze, the shoreline, and the calm unfolding of a divine presence. This beginning invited ancient listeners to reflect on beauty as something quiet before it became powerful. It arrived softly, without demanding attention, much like morning light slowly spreading across calm water before the world fully awakened. Cyprus became one of the most important centers of Aphrodite's worship throughout the Greek world. Pilgrims traveled there across many centuries, visiting sanctuaries dedicated to the goddess. They came with prayers, offerings, and gratitude, connecting their own lives with the peaceful traditions surrounding her earliest appearance. Even as kingdoms changed and generations passed, the memory of the island remained closely tied to her gentle arrival from the sea. Landscape, myth, and devotion blended together with quiet continuity. Artists found endless inspiration in this tranquil beginning. Painters, sculptors, and poets returned again and again to the image of Aphrodite emerging from the sea. Some emphasized the shimmering water, while others focused on the quiet dignity of her posture or the peaceful expressions surrounding the scene. Across centuries, each interpretation preserved the central idea that beauty entered the world gently. Rather than force or conquest, stillness and balance defined the memory of her first appearance. The shoreline itself became almost a companion to the story. Gentle tides erased footprints as quickly as they appeared, while waves continued their timeless conversation with the sand. Nothing remained fixed for long, yet the memory of Aphrodite's arrival endured across countless generations. Ancient people could stand beside the same waters, listening to the familiar surf, and imagine the peaceful moment when the sea first carried divine beauty toward the land. Sea birds drifted through the coastal air, while warm breezes crossed the beaches without interruption. These ordinary movements of nature fit comfortably beside the mythology of Aphrodite. Greek stories often allowed the natural world to remain recognizable, even when gods were nearby. The familiar sounds of waves, wind, and distant birds helped create a setting that felt calm rather than extraordinary. Divine presence blended gently into the peaceful landscape without disturbing its quiet rhythm. In time, Aphrodite would become connected with gardens, doves, roses, myrtle, and countless expressions of affection throughout Greek culture. Yet all of these associations could be traced back to the calm beginning remembered on the shores of Cyprus. Before temples, festivals, and legends spread across the Mediterranean, there was simply the quiet meeting of sea and land. That gentle arrival remained the foundation upon which every later tradition concerning the goddess would gradually grow. As the waves continued their endless journey against the shores of Cyprus, the memory of Aphrodite's peaceful arrival settled into the landscape itself. The sea returned to its familiar rhythm, carrying sunlight across its surface day after day. Nothing in nature seemed hurried. The coastline remained calm, the breeze remained gentle, and the island quietly preserved one of Greek mythology's most graceful beginnings. It was a story remembered not for noise or conflict, but for still water, soft light, and enduring beauty carried patiently across the sea. Among the gentle stories told in ancient Greece, the gardens of Aphrodite were imagined as places where beauty appeared without haste. Soft breezes carried the fragrance of roses and myrtle through quiet groves, while the sea rested peacefully nearby. These sacred places were not described as wild forests, but as carefully tended sanctuaries where harmony was reflected in every blossom. Birds nested without fear, clear springs flowed across smooth stones, and sunlight settled lightly upon leaves. Within this calm landscape, the presence of the goddess seemed gentle rather than overwhelming, inviting peaceful admiration instead of excitement or noise. The rose became one of the flowers most closely connected with Aphrodite. Ancient poets praised its soft petals and delicate fragrance, seeing in its unfolding bloom a quiet symbol of grace. Gardens dedicated to the goddess often imagined roses growing in generous clusters, their colors warmed by the gentle Mediterranean sun. Their blossoms opened slowly with each passing morning and rested beneath the cool air of evening. Rather than filling the landscape with dramatic color alone, the roses added a steady rhythm to the garden, reminding visitors that beauty often reveals itself gradually through the passing of peaceful days. Another sacred plant was the evergreen myrtle. Its glossy leaves remained fresh through changing seasons, making it a lasting emblem of enduring beauty and quiet devotion. Ancient Greeks sometimes wove myrtle into wreaths used during festivals connected with Aphrodite, while branches decorated peaceful sanctuaries near the coast. In the imagined gardens of the goddess, myrtle hedges formed calm green pathways that guided gentle walks between flowering shrubs. Their small white blossoms appeared with little display, offering subtle fragrance instead of overwhelming perfume, perfectly matching the calm atmosphere that surrounded the sacred places devoted to Aphrodite. Doves were among the birds most frequently linked with Aphrodite. Their quiet cooing blended naturally with rustling leaves and distant waves, creating sounds that suited peaceful sanctuaries. Ancient artists often placed doves beside the goddess, not as fierce companions, but as gentle symbols of affection and calm companionship. In the quiet gardens imagined around her temples, the birds rested upon marble walls, drank from clear fountains, or glided across open skies. Their slow movements reflected the tranquil character of these sacred places, where every living creature seemed to exist in comfortable harmony with the landscape. Clear water flowed through many sacred gardens dedicated to the Olympian gods, and Aphrodite's peaceful retreats were no exception. Springs emerged quietly from rocky hillsides before gathering into shallow pools that reflected blue skies above. The steady sound of flowing water softened every corner of the sanctuary, blending with bird song and gentle wind among the leaves. Ancient visitors often valued such springs for their freshness as much as their beauty. The calm presence of moving water reminded observers that quiet renewal could be found not through great effort, but through the patient rhythms of the natural world. Many sanctuaries of Aphrodite stood near the sea, especially on islands and gentle coastlines where waves arrived with quiet regularity. From these peaceful gardens, visitors could look beyond flowering trees toward bright water stretching into the distance. Sea breezes cooled the warm afternoons and carried the scent of salt together with the fragrance of blossoms. Since Aphrodite herself was closely connected with the sea in many traditions, this meeting of flowers and gentle waves felt entirely natural. Land and water seemed to rest beside one another in lasting balance beneath the broad Mediterranean sky. Stone pathways wandered gently through these imagined gardens without sharp turns or hurried destinations. Visitors could move slowly beneath shaded trees while admiring flowers blooming beside carefully placed shrubs. Marble benches rested beneath leafy branches, where cool shade lingered during the brightest hours of the day. Nothing in the landscape suggested urgency. Every feature encouraged quiet observation, from smooth stones warmed by sunlight to soft grasses bending beneath gentle breezes. Even silence became part of the sanctuary, allowing each peaceful step to match the calm rhythm that ancient poets often associated with Aphrodite herself. Small temples within these sacred gardens reflected the graceful proportions admired by Greek builders. White columns stood quietly against the surrounding greenery, while simple offerings rested near the entrance. Rather than towering over the landscape, The temples seemed comfortably woven into it. Flowers grew close to the foundations, and climbing plants softened the bright marble with living color. Morning light reached the columns first before slowly spreading across nearby paths and gardens. Architecture and nature appeared to cooperate peacefully, creating a sanctuary where beauty was expressed through balance instead of grandeur alone. Throughout the seasons, the gardens changed gradually while preserving their peaceful character. Spring brought fresh blossoms and new leaves, while summer deepened the fragrance carried by warm breezes. Autumn introduced softer colors among vines and shrubs, and even winter allowed evergreen plants to maintain quiet life across the sanctuary. Nothing appeared sudden or dramatic. Each season gently followed the last, reflecting the steady passage of time understood by the ancient Greeks. The garden remained beautiful not because it never changed, but because every change arrived with calm and natural order. Fruit trees also found a place within these peaceful landscapes. Figs, pomegranates, and olives grew slowly beneath generous sunlight, offering both nourishment and quiet beauty. Their branches stretched calmly above stone paths, while birds occasionally rested among the leaves. Harvests arrived with patient regularity rather than sudden abundance. Ancient visitors would have recognized these familiar trees as companions to everyday life across Greece. Their presence reminded all who entered the sanctuary that beauty could exist alongside usefulness, with nature providing both graceful scenery and generous gifts through the steady passage of each year. As evening approached, golden light softened every corner of the garden. Shadows lengthened gently across marble paths, while blossoms reflected warm colors beneath the setting sun. The sea beyond the sanctuary grew quieter as the wind settled into the calm of dusk. Birds returned to sheltered branches, and the gentle sound of flowing water became more noticeable in the peaceful silence. Without any need for ceremony, the garden slowly prepared itself for night. The transition from daylight to evening unfolded with graceful patience, matching the tranquil spirit long associated with Aphrodite's sacred places. When stars finally appeared above the sanctuary, the gardens entered another form of quiet beauty. Moonlight rested upon marble columns, silver leaves, and still pools where gentle reflections shimmered softly. The fragrance of flowers lingered in the cool night air without fading completely. Nothing disturbed the calm except the distant rhythm of waves along the shore. Ancient storytellers could easily imagine the sacred gardens remaining peaceful through every hour of darkness, watched only by the silent heavens stretching above the sleeping landscape. In later generations, poets continued to remember Aphrodite's gardens as places where beauty and peace naturally belonged together. Their verses described flowers, gentle breezes, clear water, and quiet coastlines with affectionate simplicity. Whether these gardens were physical sanctuaries, poetic visions, or a combination of both, they offered an enduring image of harmony between humanity and nature. The goddess herself was remembered not only through grand myths, but also through these calm landscapes where every blossom, leaf, and gentle wave contributed to an atmosphere of lasting serenity. As the quiet day came to its gentle close, the peaceful gardens of Aphrodite remained unchanged by the passing hours. Roses continued to bloom, springs continued to flow, and sea breezes continued their slow journey across flowers and marble alike. The sanctuary required no great event to reveal its meaning. Its lasting beauty rested in calm repetition, careful balance, and the quiet companionship of nature. In that serene landscape imagined by ancient Greece, every gentle detail invited stillness, allowing peace itself to become the finest ornament of the goddess's sacred garden. As the stories of Aphrodite spread across the Greek world, gentle symbols gathered around her like quiet companions. None announced themselves with great noise or sudden movement. Instead, flowers opened with the steady rhythm of the seasons, birds crossed calm skies, and warm light settled upon peaceful shores. These familiar sights reminded worshippers that beauty could be found in simple moments observed with patience. The goddess was not present only in magnificent temples or legendary tales. She was also remembered wherever nature revealed balance, grace, and quiet harmony through its smallest living details. Among the flowers most closely linked to Aphrodite was the rose. Later Greek poets often described its soft fragrance and delicate petals as worthy companions of the goddess. Some traditions imagined roses blooming wherever her presence gently touched the earth. Others connected the flower with stories of love and longing, giving it meanings that shifted between joy and sadness. Even so, the blossom remained calm in the morning breeze, opening slowly beneath the sun without haste, becoming a lasting reminder of beauty unfolding at its own natural pace. Another sacred plant was the evergreen myrtle. Its glossy leaves remained fresh throughout the changing seasons, making it a fitting emblem of lasting affection and peaceful continuity. Myrtle branches appeared in festivals, wedding celebrations, and sacred spaces dedicated to Aphrodite. Their gentle fragrance drifted through the air without overwhelming the senses. Ancient visitors passing these quiet groves would have recognized the plant immediately, understanding that its enduring green leaves reflected harmony, faithful companionship, and the quiet persistence of beauty through the passing years. The dove became perhaps the gentlest living creature associated with Aphrodite. Greek artists frequently showed the small bird resting peacefully near the goddess or accompanying her across the sky. Its calm nature and soft cooing matched the quiet mood surrounding many of her sanctuaries. Rather than fierce strength or swift hunting, the dove suggested trust, gentleness, and peaceful companionship. Watching one glide slowly above the sea or settle upon a branch invited quiet reflection instead of excitement, fitting naturally within Aphrodite's peaceful presence. Golden light also became one of Aphrodite's most enduring qualities. Ancient poets often described a soft radiance surrounding the goddess, not as blazing fire, but as warm brilliance that seemed to brighten everything nearby. This luminous quality echoed the first glow of sunrise spreading across quiet seas, or the gentle evening sun resting upon white stone temples. Such light revealed rather than dazzled, allowing every shape and color to appear with greater clarity, while preserving the peaceful stillness of the surrounding landscape. The sea itself reflected this golden brightness each morning and evening. Gentle waves carried shimmering paths across the water, reminding worshippers of Aphrodite's ancient connection with the sea from which she was born in many traditions. Standing quietly upon the shore, one could watch sunlight drift across the surface in endless motion. Nothing hurried these reflections. The changing colors unfolded gradually, offering a peaceful reminder that beauty often arrives through slow transformations rather than sudden displays. In sacred gardens dedicated to Aphrodite, flowers, shrubs, and quiet pathways encouraged peaceful walks rather than grand ceremonies alone. Visitors moved slowly beneath shade, carrying small offerings of blossoms or woven garlands. Birds called gently from nearby branches, while fragrant plants filled the warm air. Such gardens reflected the goddess through living beauty instead of carved stone alone. Every leaf, blossom, and gentle breeze became part of an atmosphere where stillness and appreciation could naturally grow together. Garlands woven from roses and myrtle leaves held special meaning during festivals and weddings. Their circular form suggested continuity without beginning or end, while their fresh fragrance reminded participants of nature's quiet abundance. Carefully braided by patient hands, these simple creations became offerings as well as decorations. They required no precious metals or elaborate craftsmanship. Instead, their beauty came from living plants gathered with care, reflecting Aphrodite's connection to the gentle gifts already present within the natural world. Many artists of ancient Greece surrounded Aphrodite with these familiar symbols rather than filling every scene with dramatic action. A rose beside her feet, a dove nearby, or a myrtle branch in the background quietly identified the goddess without the need for elaborate explanation. These visual signs became part of a shared language understood across generations. Even centuries later, viewers could recognize her presence through these peaceful companions, each carrying its own quiet layer of meaning. The colors associated with Aphrodite remained gentle as well. Soft greens of myrtle leaves, delicate pinks of blossoms, white feathers of doves, blue waters, and warm golden sunlight created a peaceful harmony familiar to Mediterranean landscapes. None sought to overwhelm the eye. Together they reflected the balanced beauty admired by Greek artists and poets, who often found lasting inspiration in the quiet relationships between light, plants, sea, and sky, rather than in constant movement. Although myths sometimes describe moments of conflict involving Aphrodite, her sacred symbols themselves remained calm and enduring. Roses continued blooming each spring. Myrtle leaves stayed green through changing seasons. Doves nested quietly among trees, and sunlight returned faithfully each dawn. These repeating patterns belong to the natural order observed by ancient people every day. In their steady return, they offered reassurance that beauty remained present regardless of the passing concerns found within mythological stories. Travelers approaching coastal sanctuaries dedicated to Aphrodite often encountered these familiar signs before reaching the temple itself. Fragrant shrubs grew along pathways. Birds circled peacefully overhead. Warm sea breezes carried the scent of nearby flowers. Sunlight reflected from pale marble toward the surrounding landscape. Together, these simple experiences gently prepared visitors for worship, allowing the transition from ordinary travel into sacred space to happen gradually, with calm rather than sudden ceremony. Greek poetry often praised ordinary moments transformed by careful observation. A single flower opening after rain, sunlight resting upon quiet waves, or a dove settling into peaceful stillness could all suggest Aphrodite's gentle influence. Such images reminded listeners that divine beauty did not always require extraordinary events. Sometimes it appeared through familiar scenes repeated each day, becoming more meaningful because they remained constant companions throughout the changing rhythm of life. In the quiet imagination of the ancient Greeks, roses, myrtles, doves, and golden light became lasting companions of Aphrodite. They asked for little attention, yet rewarded patient observation with quiet beauty. Long after festivals ended and stories were retold by new generations, these natural symbols continued to flourish beneath the same Mediterranean skies. Their peaceful presence allowed the memory of the goddess to remain close, carried gently by flowers, birds, sunlight, and the calm sea that first welcomed her into the world. Along the quiet shores of the ancient Greek world, many sanctuaries honored Aphrodite with a peaceful dignity that matched the rhythm of the sea. Their pale stone walls stood above gentle waves, where salt breezes carried the scent of flowering shrubs. Sailors approaching from distant waters often recognized these sacred places long before reaching the harbor. The temples did not simply celebrate beauty. They reminded visitors that harmony, affection, and graceful living could exist alongside the endless motion of the sea. Day after day, the same soft tide reached the rocks below, keeping a calm and familiar rhythm that seemed as enduring as the goddess herself. One of Aphrodite's oldest and most respected sanctuaries stood on the island of Cyprus, where many traditions place the beginning of her earthly presence after her birth from the sea. Pilgrims traveled across calm waters to reach the sacred precinct. They arrived carrying flowers, woven ribbons, fragrant oils, and simple offerings prepared with careful hands. The sanctuary welcomed these gifts without haste. Its quiet courtyards invited slow footsteps beneath the warm light of the eastern Mediterranean, where every breeze seemed to pass gently through the columns before returning toward the shining coastline. The temple itself reflected the balance admired throughout Greek architecture. Straight columns rose toward a carefully proportioned roof, while smooth stone absorbed the changing colors of morning and evening. Nothing appeared excessive. Beauty emerged from harmony, patience, and careful craftsmanship. Visitors found peace in these measured forms, where every line seemed to belong naturally beside the surrounding hills and water. Even when the sea winds became stronger, the sanctuary remained steady, offering a quiet place where order and calm existed together beneath the broad Mediterranean sky. Beyond Cyprus, other cities also honored Aphrodite with temples near sheltered harbors. At Corinth, the goddess held an important place within civic and religious life, although local customs differed from one region to another. Every sanctuary reflected the traditions of its own community while still recognizing the same divine presence. Travelers crossing the Greek world encountered familiar symbols wherever they stopped. Doves, roses, shells, and gentle garlands quietly reminded them that the goddess was welcomed in many lands connected by the sea. Morning ceremonies often began while sunlight slowly spread across polished stone floors. Priests and attendants prepared the sacred spaces with clean water and fresh flowers gathered before the heat of the day. Incense drifted upward in slow streams, blending with the scent of the nearby coast. Nothing moved quickly. Every action followed an established rhythm shaped by generations of careful tradition. The temple awakened gradually, much like the sea itself, whose gentle waves arrived one after another without interruption. The gardens surrounding some sanctuaries offered another expression of the goddess's quiet influence. Myrtle shrubs, flowering plants, and shaded paths softened the bright stone architecture. Birds rested among branches while bees wandered peacefully from blossom to blossom. Visitors could walk slowly through these sacred gardens before entering the temple itself. The natural world blended easily with human craftsmanship, creating a place where flowers, trees, and carefully carved marble shared the same peaceful landscape. Many who came to Aphrodite's temples sought not wealth or victory, but harmony within their own lives. Newly married couples, families, sailors preparing for long voyages, and ordinary citizens all brought quiet hopes with them. Their offerings reflected gratitude more often than grandeur. A carefully woven wreath or a small vessel of scented oil carried meaning through thoughtful preparation rather than great expense. Within the sanctuary, every sincere gift found its place among many others offered over countless peaceful seasons. The sound of the nearby sea remained a constant companion to these sacred places. Gentle waves rose and fell beneath cliffs and beaches, continuing their ancient movement through every generation. Priests, pilgrims, and travelers all heard the same quiet rhythm. The sea reminded them that change and constancy could exist together. Each wave appeared new, yet together they formed an endless pattern that never seemed to grow tired of reaching the shore. As daylight passed toward afternoon, sunlight shifted slowly across the temple columns. Long shadows stretched across smooth stone, cooling the open courtyards while birds circled quietly overhead. The changing light transformed familiar surfaces without altering their peaceful character. Every hour revealed another gentle face of the sanctuary. Visitors who remained throughout the day experienced these subtle changes as naturally as watching clouds drift across the bright Greek sky. Festivals dedicated to Aphrodite sometimes filled these sacred places with music, songs, and floral decorations. Yet even celebration followed an ordered rhythm shaped by tradition. Processions moved with dignity rather than haste. Hymns praised the goddess using familiar melodies remembered across generations. Although the gatherings could be joyful, the temples themselves continued to offer moments of quiet reflection within their shaded porticos and peaceful gardens beside the sea. As evening approached, the sea reflected soft colors beneath the descending sun. Marble walls warmed briefly with shades of gold before fading into cooler tones. Gentle breezes became quieter, and the sanctuary settled into another peaceful night. Lamps might glow softly within sheltered spaces, while distant stars slowly appeared above the coastline. The temple remained watchful without effort, standing calmly where land and sea met beneath the widening heavens. Generations passed, kingdoms changed, and many travelers continued arriving from distant islands and mainland ports. Each visitor encountered the same broad sea, the same patient stone, and the same quiet invitation to slow their thoughts. Even when individual lives moved quickly beyond the sanctuary, the temple remained rooted in its place, offering an enduring image of balance that reflected both human craftsmanship and the timeless landscape surrounding it. Today, the surviving ruins still overlook familiar shores where gentle waves continue their endless journey. Broken columns and weathered foundations speak softly of centuries shaped by wind, sunlight, and salt air. Though roofs and walls have faded, the setting remains remarkably unchanged. Sea, sky, and distant hills preserve much of the quiet atmosphere that once surrounded the living sanctuary, allowing the imagination to rest peacefully among the enduring stones. In the calm silence of these ancient coastal sanctuaries, Aphrodite was remembered not only as the goddess of beauty, but also as a gentle presence closely tied to peace, harmony, and the quiet gifts of the natural world. The sea continued its patient rhythm below the temples, flowers opened with the morning light, and evening always returned with equal certainty. Together they formed a lasting picture of serenity, where graceful architecture and the enduring coastline rested side by side through the passing centuries. The stories of Aphrodite often begin with gentle reminders that beauty, in Greek thought, was more than appearance alone. It was harmony, balance, graceful movement, and the quiet pleasure found in gardens, music, and peaceful companionship. Ancient poets imagined the goddess bringing these qualities wherever she walked. Flowers opened across meadows, soft fragrances drifted through the air, and the restless thoughts of mortals became calmer for a little while. These images reflected an ideal world where beauty encouraged kindness, celebration, and careful appreciation of life's simple moments beneath the bright skies of ancient Greece. One gentle tale tells of Aphrodite's affection for Adonis, a youth admired for his extraordinary beauty. Their time together was imagined as peaceful walks among hills, shaded groves, and flowering valleys. Ancient storytellers lingered over the quiet scenes rather than hurried events, describing the changing seasons, birds singing in nearby trees, and gentle breezes moving through leaves. Even when later traditions remembered sorrow, they also celebrated the enduring cycle of nature, where flowers continued to bloom each spring as symbols of remembrance and renewal. The goddess was also closely connected with roses, myrtle, and fragrant blossoms that decorated temples and family celebrations. Worshippers gathered these plants with care, weaving them into simple garlands offered with quiet gratitude. Such offerings required patience rather than wealth. A handful of fresh flowers gathered at sunrise carried meaning through their freshness and fragrance. In this way, beauty became something shared by ordinary people as well as kings, reminding every visitor that peaceful devotion could be expressed through nature's smallest and most delicate gifts. Ancient artists often portrayed Aphrodite beside calm waters, where the sea reflected the changing colors of dawn and evening. These quiet shorelines represented beginnings, since many traditions remembered her arrival from the sea upon gentle waves. The water itself became a symbol of constant movement without haste. Ripples reached the shore again and again with quiet certainty, suggesting that beauty could return each day through familiar rhythms rather than dramatic change. Among the birds associated with Aphrodite, the dove became the most familiar symbol of peaceful affection. Ancient observers admired its quiet calls, graceful flight, and faithful companionship. Images of a single dove often appeared beside the goddess in sculpture and painted pottery, expressing serenity instead of grandeur. The gentle bird reminded worshippers that love could be calm, patient, and enduring, growing quietly through trust and shared days rather than sudden excitement alone. The swan also belonged to Aphrodite's sacred imagery. Floating effortlessly across still lakes, it reflected elegance without effort, its white feathers catching the soft light of morning. Greek poets admired the quiet confidence of the bird, seeing in its peaceful movements an image of natural harmony. The slow circles traced across the water disturbed only the smallest ripples before the surface became smooth once more, returning the landscape to complete stillness. Many sanctuaries dedicated to Aphrodite stood on gentle hills overlooking fields, gardens, or the sea. Pilgrims climbed slowly toward these temples, leaving behind the busy sounds of marketplaces below. Upon arrival, they entered places filled with cool stone, fragrant incense, and quiet prayers. The journey itself became part of devotion, encouraging visitors to slow their pace and notice the peaceful landscapes stretching across valleys and distant coastlines. Greek weddings often honored Aphrodite through songs, flowers, and simple offerings that asked for harmony within the household. Rather than celebrating only beauty, these ceremonies expressed hopes for kindness, mutual respect, and lasting companionship. The goddess became a guardian of peaceful homes where daily routines could unfold with affection and patience. Even the smallest family rituals reflected the belief that love was strengthened through ordinary acts repeated with gentle care. Artists across centuries carved marble statues of Aphrodite with relaxed posture and calm expression. These works were not intended merely to display physical perfection. They also explored balance, proportion, and inner tranquility. Light passing across smooth stone throughout the day created subtle changes that made the sculptures seem quietly alive. Visitors walking through sanctuaries could pause before them, finding stillness within carefully crafted forms shaped by patient hands. Poets frequently described gentle breezes carrying the scent of blossoms wherever Aphrodite wandered. The wind itself became part of her quiet presence, moving softly through orchards, vineyards, and flowering fields. Nothing hurried these peaceful moments. Nature responded gradually, with leaves rustling, grasses bending, and petals turning toward the sunlight. Such images reminded listeners that beauty often revealed itself through slow and almost unnoticed changes across familiar landscapes. The island sanctuaries associated with Aphrodite often overlooked calm harbors where fishing boats rested between voyages. Sailors arriving after long journeys offered thanks for safe passage before continuing toward home. The quiet meeting of sea and land reflected the goddess's own connection with peaceful shores. Evening light settled gently across the water, while distant hills softened into shades of blue beneath the slowly approaching night. Ancient philosophers sometimes reflected that true beauty encouraged moderation rather than excess. In this understanding, Aphrodite's gifts invited appreciation without possession and admiration without haste. Gardens, music, poetry, and peaceful conversation all became expressions of harmonious living. These quiet pleasures required attention instead of wealth, allowing anyone to discover moments of grace within the ordinary rhythm of each passing day. As evening arrived, offerings left within Aphrodite's sanctuaries remained quietly surrounded by flowers and small lamps. Their gentle flames flickered without hurry, casting warm light across polished stone. Worshippers departed softly, leaving the sacred places almost silent except for distant birds and the sound of the wind. The stillness itself became part of devotion, preserving an atmosphere where beauty rested peacefully through the calm hours of the night. In the peaceful imagination of Greek mythology, Aphrodite's presence lingered wherever harmony flourished between people and the natural world. A blooming flower, a calm sea, a quiet garden, or the gentle flight of a dove could all recall her enduring influence. Her stories invited contemplation rather than urgency, celebrating beauty that unfolded gradually with the passing seasons. Like the steady rhythm of gentle waves upon a familiar shore, these timeless images continue to offer calm, balance, and quiet wonder across the landscapes of ancient Greece. As the years passed, Aphrodite found a lasting place among the immortal gods of Olympus. Although many stories remember moments of rivalry or strong emotion, daily devotion to the goddess was often peaceful. She was honored as a gentle presence connected with beauty, affection, harmony, and the quiet bonds that brought families, friends, and communities together. Ancient poets described her moving with graceful ease through the bright halls of the gods, carrying not the noise of conflict, but the calm reminder that kindness and affection could soften even the hardest hearts. Across the Greek world, simple shrines and magnificent temples alike welcomed those who wished to honor Aphrodite. Worshippers often approached without haste, bringing fresh flowers gathered in the cool morning, fragrant oils prepared with care, or ribbons woven in gentle colors. These offerings reflected everyday gratitude rather than grand displays. The quiet act of placing a blossom upon an altar became a peaceful expression of respect, joining countless similar moments repeated through generations beneath the warm Mediterranean sun. The fragrant myrtle became one of Aphrodite's most familiar sacred plants. Evergreen leaves and delicate white blossoms symbolized enduring beauty that remained gentle through every season. Garden paths shaded by myrtle bushes offered cool places for reflection, while temple courtyards carried their pleasant scent upon the afternoon breeze. Ancient visitors may have paused quietly beneath these branches, finding comfort in simple natural beauty that required no ornament beyond sunlight, soft wind, and patient growth. The rose also came to be closely associated with Aphrodite. Poets admired its unfolding petals and delicate fragrance, seeing within the flower an image of graceful beauty that appeared naturally and faded gently with time. Rather than encouraging sadness, this changing bloom reminded many Greeks to appreciate each peaceful season while it lasted. A single rose placed upon a shrine carried quiet meaning without words, expressing gratitude through its simple presence. Many sailors remembered Aphrodite whenever calm seas reflected the morning sky like polished glass. Since her own birth was linked with the sea, coastal communities often offered prayers before beginning long voyages. Small gifts of incense, shells, or flowers were presented with hope for peaceful waters and safe returns. Gentle waves touching the shoreline became quiet reminders of the goddess, whose first appearance had emerged from the bright foam long before human memory. Young couples preparing for marriage sometimes sought Aphrodite's blessing before beginning a shared life. Ceremonies varied from city to city, yet many included modest offerings made with sincerity rather than extravagance. Families gathered in peaceful celebration, believing that affection, patience, and mutual respect would strengthen the household. In these quiet traditions, Aphrodite represented not only beauty, but also the steady care that allowed companionship to flourish across many seasons. Artists, sculptors, and potters frequently honored Aphrodite through careful craftsmanship. Marble, bronze, painted clay, and carved ivory became lasting materials through which they explored graceful balance and elegant form. Workshops echoed softly with steady labor rather than hurried movement. Each completed statue or painted vessel reflected patient attention, suggesting that beauty emerged not from speed but from thoughtful hands working with calm purpose day after day. Some sanctuaries dedicated to Aphrodite overlooked the sea, while others rested upon gentle hills surrounded by olive trees and flowering fields. Pilgrims arriving from distant towns often paused before entering, listening to birdsong or the distant sound of waves. The journey itself became part of the offering, allowing quiet reflection long before reaching the sacred courtyard, where incense drifted slowly upward beneath the open sky. Although many myths describe Aphrodite influencing both gods and mortals, ordinary worship focused less upon dramatic stories than upon peaceful gratitude. Daily life offered countless opportunities to recognize beauty in blooming gardens, calm harbors, gentle friendships, and loving families. Through these familiar experiences, the goddess remained close not through extraordinary miracles, but through the quiet rhythms that shaped ordinary days across ancient Greece. Festivals honoring Aphrodite differed across the Greek world, yet many combined music, flowers, shared meals, and offerings presented with respectful calm. Citizens gathered beneath clear skies, while musicians played gentle melodies upon the lyre or flute. The celebrations honored both the goddess and the harmony that allowed communities to live together in peace. Even after the festivities ended, garlands and fragrant blossoms often remained quietly decorating the sacred places. Ancient poets often compared Aphrodite's presence to the first light of dawn touching calm water. The comparison emphasized gentle transformation rather than sudden brilliance. Just as sunrise slowly filled the sea with soft color, affection and beauty entered ordinary life through gradual moments of kindness, patience, and quiet generosity. These peaceful images helped generations remember the goddess with warmth rather than fear. Even after centuries had passed, travelers continued to visit places associated with Aphrodite. Weathered temple columns, worn stone paths, and ancient altars quietly preserved memories of countless visitors who had paused there before. Although voices faded and generations changed, the landscape itself seemed to remember their peaceful devotion. Sea breezes still carried familiar scents of salt and flowering plants across those timeless sanctuaries. The stories surrounding Aphrodite gradually became part of Greek poetry, philosophy, and art, inspiring reflection on beauty that reached beyond appearance alone. Many thinkers recognized that harmony also lived within balanced relationships, careful speech, and thoughtful actions. In this broader understanding, the goddess symbolized quiet elegance found not only in lovely forms, but also in gentle character and peaceful living. As evening settled across the ancient shores of Greece, temples dedicated to Aphrodite stood quietly beneath the fading light. The last offerings of flowers rested peacefully upon cool stone altars, while gentle breezes carried their fragrance into the gathering dusk. Sea and sky slowly blended into soft shades of blue and gold. In that calm stillness, the memory of Aphrodite remained as enduring as the rhythm of waves, the blooming of flowers, and the quiet beauty found throughout the natural world.